Picture this: a quiet evening in your backyard, the chirping of crickets filling the air, when suddenly a deer leaps the fence. It's not just passing through. This doe is on a mission, attacking your dogs and then turning its rage toward you. Now imagine being pregnant, defenseless, and staring down an enraged animal rearing up on its hind legs to charge. Your father rushes out with a shotgun, trying to scare it away with rubber buckshot, but the deer won't stop. In the end, he's forced to make a life or death decision to save you. This is not a movie plot, it's real life. Buckle up, because today on Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, we're uncovering the savage truth. Welcome to Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where we bring you closer to the untamed world of human-wildlife interactions. And if you think nature is always serene and peaceful, think again. Today, we're diving into an intense story straight out of Colorado. A place where deer and elk are no strangers to backyards, parks and playgrounds. But this season, something is different. A surge of aggressive behavior has left residents scrambling for answers and in some cases fighting for their lives. Today we explore the story of a protective mule deer charging a pregnant woman in her own backyard. What's triggering this extreme behavior? Is it something in the environment, or is it just the maternal instincts of these animals pushed to the brink? Stay tuned as we break down the heart-pounding details of this attack. Before we dive into the details, let's take a quick moment to connect. If you're captivated by stories of human-animal encounters that leave you on the edge of your seat, this is the place for you. Show your support by smashing that like button. It lets us know you're enjoying these wild adventures and helps more people discover our channel. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever had a close call with a wild animal? Whether it's a bear in the backyard, a moose on the hiking trail, or even a curious raccoon at the campsite, we'd love to hear your personal stories. And hey, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Why? Because we upload regularly, bringing you the most thrilling, jaw-dropping and sometimes life-saving tales of humans and animals colliding in unexpected ways. When you're subscribed and the bell is rung, you'll never miss out on the next incredible encounter. It'll come straight to you, ready to watch. Most importantly, share this video with your friends and family, especially anyone who lives or hikes in areas with wildlife. These stories aren't just fascinating, they're reminders of how to coexist safely with the natural world. Together, we can help others stay informed and prepared. So sit tight, get ready for a wild ride, and enjoy this in-depth look into Colorado's extraordinary and sometimes terrifying wildlife encounters. This is Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where the wild meets the unexpected. Because out here in the wild, every encounter tells a savage tale. It was a calm evening in El Paso County, Colorado. The kind of night where the sounds of chirping crickets and rustling leaves reminded you how close the community sat to the untamed wilderness. For one pregnant woman, it was supposed to be an ordinary moment in her fenced backyard, a routine visit outside to check on her two energetic dogs. The yard, enclosed by a sturdy wooden fence, had always felt like a safe haven, a place where wildlife and human lives ran parallel but rarely intersected. But that night would be different. The woman's two dogs had been restless, their barking sharp and persistent as they raced along the fence line, tails raised and noses pressed to the ground. Their behavior wasn't unusual. The occasional deer, fox or coyote passing beyond the property often triggered this kind of excitement. However, this time their reaction felt different. The barking didn't wane or fade. It grew louder and more frenzied, echoing through the still air. Curious and slightly concerned, the woman stepped out onto the back porch to see what was going on. The late spring sun had set and the twilight was fading fast. Her eyes scanned the yard, initially seeing nothing out of the ordinary. But then, just beyond the fence, she caught sight of a shadow moving against the backdrop of the tall grass. A mule deer doe had appeared, its sleek body silhouetted in the dim light. The deer was eerily still, watching the yard with wide, unblinking eyes. At first the woman assumed it was just another curious wanderer, pausing briefly before continuing its journey. But this deer didn't move on. Instead it lingered, stepping closer to the fence with an intensity in its gaze that made her uneasy. The dogs, sensing the intruder's presence, barked even more ferociously, their excitement shifting to aggression. As they darted back and forth along the fence, the doe stiffened, its muscles tensing as it took in the chaotic scene. The woman could see the creature's ears flicking back and forth and its head lowering slightly, signs she recognized as defensive. Concerned that her dogs were provoking the deer, she clapped her hands sharply and shouted, trying to break their focus. But the effort had the opposite effect. Instead of retreating, the deer's behavior grew more erratic. It began to stamp its hooves against the ground, a clear warning. Its chest heaved, and the whites of its eyes flashed in the fading light. Only then did the woman notice something just beyond the deer. Hidden in the tall grass, partially obscured by shadows, was a tiny fawn, its delicate form barely visible. Her stomach dropped as she realized what was happening. The doe wasn't just a random visitor, it was a mother. And she saw the barking dogs as predators threatening her vulnerable offspring. The woman called for her dogs, but they were too locked into the standoff to respond. Desperate to de-escalate, she stepped closer to the yard's center, clapping louder and shouting at the doe, hoping to scare it off. The deer, however, was far from deterred. With a sudden burst of energy, the doe leapt over the fence and into the yard. It landed heavily on the grass, its hooves striking the ground like a thunderclap. The woman froze for a moment, shocked by the sheer boldness of the animal. Her dogs hesitated too, momentarily stunned by the sudden escalation. The backyard, once a safe haven, was now a battlefield. The doe charged at the dogs, driving them into a frenzy. They barked and darted, narrowly avoiding the powerful strikes of the deer's hooves. The woman's heart raced as she tried to intervene, yelling and waving her arms to distract the animal. But the deer wasn't backing down. It turned toward her, its nostrils flaring and its body language shifting into something unmistakably aggressive. Inside the house, her father heard the commotion and rushed outside. Armed with a shotgun loaded with rubber buckshot, a non-lethal round designed to scare off wildlife, he quickly assessed the scene. Spotting the doe poised in the yard, he raised the shotgun and fired. The loud crack of the non-lethal round echoed through the night, and the woman thought for a moment that the sound would drive the deer away. But to her horror, the animal barely flinched. Instead, the doe turned its focus entirely on her, rearing up on its hind legs, its sharp hooves slashing at the air. In that instant, the confrontation reached a boiling point. The woman tried to retreat, but the deer was no longer defending its fawn, it was attacking. As the mule deer reared up on its hind legs, the backyard transformed into a chaotic primal battleground. Its sharp front hooves struck the air with alarming precision, and its eyes locked onto the pregnant woman as if she were the sole threat. Time seemed to slow as she stumbled backward, instinctively shielding her belly with her arms, her voice catching in her throat as she screamed for help. Her dogs, sensing the danger to their owner, lunged forward in a desperate attempt to defend her. Their frantic barking and snapping momentarily diverted the doe's attention, but the enraged animal was undeterred. With a forceful swing of its hooves, the deer struck one of the dogs, sending it yelping and tumbling to the side. The other dog dodged just in time, circling back to protect its owner. The woman tried to retreat further, but the deer's focus shifted back to her. It dropped to all fours and lunged forward, closing the distance with terrifying speed. She turned to run, her heart pounding in her chest, but the uneven ground and her rising panic made her movements clumsy. The deer charged, its powerful body knocking her to the ground. She cried out as she fell, her hands instinctively bracing her fall to protect her unborn child. The impact was like hitting a wall. Pain shot through her body as the deer stood over her, its hooves slamming into the ground dangerously close to her. She scrambled to move away, but the animal loomed above her, raising its front legs again for another strike. Suddenly, her father appeared at the edge of the porch, the shotgun gripped tightly in his hands. His voice boomed through the chaos as he shouted at the animal, trying to draw its attention away from his daughter. He fired another round of rubber buckshot, the blast cutting through the night air. The doe hesitated, its ears flicking toward the sound, but it didn't retreat. Instead, it seemed emboldened, as if the non-lethal shots were nothing more than an annoyance. The woman's father acted quickly. With the deer still focused on his daughter, he raised the shotgun again, this time with lethal intent. As the animal prepared to strike again, the man took careful aim and fired. The deafening crack of the shotgun was followed by a moment of stillness. The doe staggered, its powerful body collapsing onto the grass with a heavy thud. The yard fell eerily silent, save for the woman's labored breathing and the whimpers of her injured dog. In the aftermath, the scene was a mix of relief and shock. The woman's father rushed to her side, helping her sit up as she clutched her stomach, tears streaming down her face. She assured him that she was okay, though her voice trembled with fear and adrenaline. Her dogs limped toward her, their tails low but wagging weakly as if to reassure her they had done their part to protect her. The doe lay still in the yard, its lifeless form a stark reminder of how quickly the encounter had escalated. A few feet away, the tiny fawn, unaware of its mother's fate, remained hidden in the tall grass beyond the fence. When Colorado Parks and wildlife officials arrived later that evening, they carefully assessed the scene. After confirming that the man's actions were in self-defense, they transported the fawn to a nearby wildlife rehabilitation center. Officials explained that the doe's aggressive behavior was almost certainly a result of its maternal instincts, heightened by the presence of the barking dogs. The woman and her father were left shaken, but grateful that the situation hadn't turned out worse. The dogs, though injured, would recover with time and care. Neighbors gathered the next day, exchanging stories and expressing concern over the growing number of wildlife encounters in their community. For the young woman, the once safe backyard now carried a sense of unease, a reminder of how thin the line between domestic life and the wild could be. Though the physical injuries would heal, the memory of the deer's relentless attack lingered, a chilling testament to the raw, unpredictable power of nature. Wow, what an intense story! It's incredible how raw and unpredictable nature can be. It reminds us all that when we live alongside wildlife, we're stepping into their world, and that sometimes their instincts can collide with our day-to-day lives in ways we'd never expect. Before you go, let me know in the comments below, have you ever had a close call or a surprising encounter with wildlife? What would you have done if you were in this situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and your stories could even inspire a future video here on Savage Tales Animal Encounters. Now, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps us out and lets us know you want more of these jaw-dropping animal encounter stories. While you're at it, hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. We dive into the wildest tales every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Sharing is caring, so send this video to a friend or family member who loves a good nature story, or someone who could use a reminder to keep an eye out when they're in the great outdoors. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this amazing community. Your support makes it possible for us to keep bringing these incredible tales to life. This is Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where we explore the thrilling, the wild and the unexpected. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe and stay wild.